The life and death within the knowledge of certain people will only be revealed upon death, and until then that those certain people will truly believe. Speculation still exists when the action becomes reality, and only the obvious will be known in the following occurrences in the ongoing strifes, struggles, and within society, and constant denial of that truth. Now let's sit back and take that journey into the other world and beyond. Hello, I'm J.R. Freeman, and welcome to the other world and beyond. It's been a privilege as well as my pleasure to bring knowledge of death into life, and that death is the very essence of life, which will account for certain we are not alone. And that same knowledge of life and death circulated in millions, which separated them from God. This separation has led many people astray. And that reason being, it has been a very, very, very long time since the law opposed slavery, then bondage upon certain people. This bondage is the oppression within the making of this law, and it was the determinism which abolished free will under that same constitutional right. And this right was for determinism was already understood by society. It was by no means that the force something that was already inside of them. So where is this all going? The answer to those certain questions will already be understood by society. You see, those answers revolve around certain parameters called control. And this control is the bondage placed in a mixed multitude of people now residing in America. Now, that same bondage switched from certain people to a multinational race under God's chosen. That mixture created a widespread of diluted blood. The communion of drinking wine and breaking bread has been quoted, blood of my blood and flesh of my flesh. Now remember, I said, instead of you controlling life, at some point in time it controls you. This was the determinism that I brought out in the following video. Remember also I said, how do you simply get out of that control? The most important concept of it all is the communication process and the direct relationship with God. That process and control, like I've said, is the spiritual life as apparent to the physical world. This brought the Messiah in a life which you signified by the communing of breaking bread and drinking wine. Now what the word communion really means is very important for a lot of people who are still plugged into the systematic thinking. And within that system, the question still goes unanswered by millions. What men say I am? And that question has already been answered centuries ago. Now it will be asked again. What men say I am. And that same knowledge in my appearance will explain further to know just what those two words meant. For years attending school in Mossville, Louisiana, I've been teased by my appearance. That taunt still continues even today. Look at his big nose, look at his nappy hair, and look at his tar black skin. Those descriptions led me to find out just who I am. That I revealed in taking communion was the very nature in my description. I was led to believe that word communion was a time to accept the Messiah in my life and to be forgiven of my sins. For some reason, it took me further away from than closer than the truth. That knowledge has always been in my flesh and blood, and no other way but by the Messiah could I have ever known any of this until dying. My near-death experience showed me just who I am and what's acceptable in my doing in this world. You see, by the construct of man, as in the word am, was explained to me as the making of his chosen. And the word I was personal, as in singular, as in oneness, as in God. But combining these two words was his chosen among the masses. Now my sickle cell trait, big nose, hair like wool, and dark skin have led me to know that reason why I am here. Now that word communion led me to find this reason. And that same reason was not to take communion after having my near-death experience. And within the knowledge of accepting communion was something that has been inside and outside of me ever since birth. My death was not just the beginning, but the beginning of the beginning. And within my unique appearance and blood gave me knowledge of life. And one trip to San Antonio, Texas revealed that knowledge to me. There on the wall, on a display case at the Ripley's Believe It or Not museum, was a picture of a man. And on the bottom it read, most genetic diverse people on earth, pygmies and African bushmen. For some genetic traits, pygmies and African bushmen have up to 17 genetic variations, whereas most people on earth have 2 or 3. They may represent the survivors of the original. Now, for many years, not knowing who I am became relevant that day. And in that knowledge revealed a certain type of Africans, not all of them. This separated and singled out individual aspects between blacks that later became known as hate within other Africans. Now that same taunt with my features among the blacks in America will reveal their nature as the same hate. This common hate has been shared not only among dark-skinned blacks, but fair-skinned blacks, whites, Asians, Hispanics, and etc. as well. But a particular verse brought out why this sort of hate exists. Mind you that the archaeologists continue to keep digging to only discover that the oldest bones keep popping up in Africa. And the reason being is quite simple enough. It states in the book of Colossians chapter 1 verse 15 explains why they keep digging and digging and digging. It reads, who is the image of the invisible God, Yahweh, the firstborn of every creature. That refusal of communion led me to define the reason why this was so important. Those who shared communion led others to join them in sacred vow to whatever they believed in doing. And I even looked up the definition to see why the Spirit told me not to commune with such people. That refusal of communion led me to define the reason why this was so important. Those who shared communion led others to join them in sacred vow to whatever they believed in doing. And I even looked up the definition to see why the Spirit told me not to commune with such people. The dictionary defined communion as this: the definition defined for communion is interchange or sharing of thoughts or emotions, intimate communication. Some would even welcome this nature of communion, accept whatever that person was doing by simply acting upon it. This brought their sinful nature upon all those who commune with them, and this is by the millions of those so-called religious leaders, bringing their sinful nature upon all those who commune that particular day. You don't have to take my word for it. Research it for yourself and find out what this particular word means. And I always wondered how Satan would get the masses of people to accept him. The only way to get a person to think a certain way would be by birth. And if that person only knows that particular way, no one could tell them the difference, even if it was the truth. Thank you for listening to the Other World and Beyond Productions, and join me next time in the process of making the spiritual life into reality. And if you feel the need to learn deeper knowledge of life, a book can be found on the website below. Have a safe and happy journey in the following year to come. Until we meet again, good day.